Welcome to the TruthLover video podcast presented by Love and Truth Party. I'm your host, Will Pye, author, speaker, transformational coach, and founder of Love and Truth Party. Love and Truth Party is a self-organizing, self-replicating community and movement of love and awakening, a wisdom school facilitating health, healing, and happiness. Find us and join our mailing list at www.loveandtruthparty.org. We exist to empower the deep realization and integration of unitive consciousness of one human being, and to inspire action in the world from this clarity as New Earth Ninjas, our playful avatar. We do so in the spirit of play, holding the paradox that all is well, even and including all collective crises, while simultaneously being moved to act, to lessen suffering and serve the creation of conscious culture and society. Our projects include distributing 1 million love letters from the universe, inviting people to receive love and care in these, and within the happiness hacks and other free resources found on loveandtruthparty.org. Our online courses, The Alchemy of Cancer and The Alchemy of Depression, empower the creation of health, healing, and happiness. And I'm thrilled today that we are joined by Jeannine Walston. Jeannine, just bring up your bio here, has extensive experience for over 20 years focused on healthcare, cancer, wellness, and lifestyle, including special expertise and deep passion for addressing the whole person. She has a national reputation as a cancer coach, health and wellness coach, consultant, and speaker through her businesses Integrative Cancer Care for the Whole Person and Healing Focus. Jeannine is a brain tumor survivor since March of 1998, and that certainly enriches her work and perspectives. Jeannine, it's wonderful to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Will. It's an honor to be with you.
Great pleasure. And we were playing around with how we might frame our conversation, and we were looking at possible titles, and we came up with cancer, healing, and the power of purpose. So I reckon we've got quite a juicy amount in there to explore. And I'm wondering if it might be a nice place to start. 20 years as a survivor from a brain tumor is pretty remarkable. So perhaps you could share what cancer, healing, and the power of purpose has meant for you. What's your experience been of that?
Well, it's been such a journey for me. I was diagnosed when I was 24. I knew nothing about cancer, and I was working in the U.S. Congress, wanted to become an attorney. And as I dwelled into doing research in the cancer world, and specifically for a brain tumor, I found different information strategies in my process for optimal health and healing. And I can briefly tell you, with my conventional treatments, with innovation, which is so important, I had 3 awake brain surgeries, radiation, chemotherapy, as well as clinical trials, including immunotherapy. And as I was going through that journey, I really came to understand with emphasis, personally and professionally, in my work in the cancer arena, that it couldn't just be cancer itself. I had to give attention to the whole person. And over many years, I've been able to understand the whole person in relationship with cancer and in general. I mean, it's paramount for anyone to really acknowledge and strive to define and give attention to the whole person. And so with cancer, it's a dance, and it's paramount to then define, the whole person. And I've done that. And that's, an incredible mosaic within and externally. And certainly with whole person, integrative cancer care for the whole person, integrative health and wellness, however defined, it's the entire physical body, mind-body connection, spiritual vitality, social support, and a cleaner environment. So it's such a healing process, again, for anyone. And with cancer, it's tricky, and it's an ongoing relationship, in my mindset, to really become more awake and really focus on that healing process. And I perceive, until I move on, when I when I die, it's my last breath. It's important for that ongoing transformation, evolution, and to really strive in so many ways, including through purpose.
Mm-hmm. Beautifully summed up. So much was coming to me from hearing that. One thing, I like the metaphor of a dance. It seems that the way we look at cancer, the way we frame cancer is so important, and to recognize that there's the opportunity or a potential, because diving at that level of depth into all that you listed there, really transforming the whole person, your environment, inner, outer, everything. That's an extraordinarily rich journey of personal self-discovery, of growth, of expansion, and so on. So that certainly matches with my own experience to a large extent as well, that there is, within such a crisis, within such a significant problem, a huge opportunity for ultimately better health and a happier human being.
Yes, for anyone, it's paramount, to really have that self-awareness and to strive in new directions. As I repeat, with or without cancer, and
right.
it was such a process for me when I initially I had my my first awake brain surgery 1 month after being diagnosed. And then I didn't know what to do. I was thinking cancer prevention, and I started with complementary and alternative therapies, and then it was holistic, and then to really understand again the mosaics. It's so important, and it's for each person, each individual, to really find what is best for them. And that can be with complexities, because people have the capacity in their own, I don't want to say box, but everyone can be in a box where they haven't had the insights in the past to really expand their horizons, and to be open, to be really, really open to new information, possibilities, and really take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it seems that cancer really insists that we look at things differently. There's no more powerful message or invitation that what's been going on hasn't been working. It hasn't been working ideally. Something's not right. So there's an insistence to transform, to change. And I think it's one of the reasons, I know you're a successful cancer coach and health and wellness coach, and it's one of the reasons I love working with cancer patients amongst other clients, is that generally there's a very strong motivation and drive to transform. So often they're great clients to work with, because you get to see that transformation and that change. I wonder if you can maybe share a little bit about how, I guess there's something I'd like your perspective on, because that's what I often observe, and also it's not always the case. So how is it perhaps that, with your experience at working with people, how is it that some people maybe don't take that invitation, or to make the overall transformation of their life? And is that a fair distinction in your observations?
It varies. It really varies. And there are ways for education, there are ways for motivation, and to really create relationships in our conversation and some structure on a daily basis for them to incorporate new ideas and new usage of what we're talking about. And it's a process. It can't, some pieces often can't happen overnight. And it's really from the mindset with anything to okay, I should eat certain foods, for example. Well, I still want to eat sugar or whatever it is, and to really discuss that at a step-by-step process. That can be really helpful. It varies, though, as I mentioned. It depends on the person, and to really develop understanding to a certain capacity, and to really capture who they are and what they're doing in their own lifestyle. And to emphasize that you can go to a provider. That's fantastic. And I, as a cancer coach, if they're interested, strive to create a plan and a team. And then, okay, well, you go to see a provider or whomever it is, it's an hour perhaps. Well, what about 24/7? And it's, really important to understand the concept of self-care strategies. This is with each person, they live their life and they make choices. And to really put that into the psyche, to understand, you can work in certain directions, and through scientific research, it really reduces cancer, cancer prevention. Or, if, for example, there was a recent study about exercise, for cancer patients diagnosed and through treatments. And certainly it shows that cancer increases survival. And with details, with exercise, it was with over 5,000 patients, 20 different types of cancer. And to me, that's really innovative. Is someone else going to take in that scientific information? Well, I don't know, but I could insert that. It depends on the person. Maybe someone is talking about their family and their kids. Well, you can do that with your kids, or you can think that in your mindset, to do certain things, and not just exercise. Certainly other pieces in the puzzle of each person.
It's great that there are more studies coming out that prove what really is common sense in my mind, that, for example, exercise, diet, not eating foods with carcinogens on them, it's probably a good starting point. Eating whole foods, it's just really basic, obvious stuff, or it seems obvious to me at least. And attitude. So these three things for me are probably the most evidenced causes of good health outcomes in general. Diet, exercise, and attitude. And of course, we know from the placebo effect and so on, from psychoneuroimmunology, that our state of mind is causative in health outcomes. And yet, I actually had an oncologist say to me that food, diet, attitude, irrelevant. Don't worry about it. Nothing to do with this. It was like, wow, how extraordinary that an apparent expert could offer that advice. So it really emphasizes the need for a broader conversation. I like how you point also to the team that an individual needs to assemble. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was like, there was at different times, different people. Like a massage therapist was a really important part of my self-care process and emotional healing and so on for a while, or a naturopath, as well as the conventional guys. But the conventional guys for me were very much just part of that team. They weren't leading the team. I'm leading the team. So it seems that that's important, that the individual who's being diagnosed and in general beyond cancer diagnosis takes on that personal responsibility, takes that position of power as a patient rather than victim. I imagine that's been important in your journey with, you know, a successful 20 years of surviving and serving others.
Well, certainly I have to be motivational. I have to be an advocate, a self-advocate, and it's essential to really, you know, live life more fully. You know, I can't just. I've gone through waves where I've been in overwhelm, and at the same time, you know, I strive. You know, I strive in new directions. And I've learned a tremendous amount from things that I wish I hadn't done. And you know, the unexpected is an incredible teacher.
Mm-hmm. Can you speak a little bit about what you wish you hadn't done, or is that sort of within your life journey? I know I can look back in mine, and like anyone, look at things choices that I've made that weren't the smartest.
Well, I had extreme, it was extreme with a well-known hospital where, and it wasn't my fault, I was having MRIs, but, you know, I was eventually told of my recurrence in 2004, and it's actually, you know, clear through the, you know, the reports that it began in 2000. So I could have asked for reports, you know, after every MRI and conversations with my neuro-oncologist. And, you know, that was, you know, that still bothers me. And he had left the hospital, and in between when I was finally told I could get my next MRI for a whole year. So, you know, it's important to trust, and at the same time, well, can I trust with, you know, all providers? So I still am aware and trying to figure out the best course of action.
So that's the self-advocacy, right? It's like you're really the buck stops with you, or the buck stops with me, because it's reasonable. We might think, well, the oncologist knows what they're doing. The hospital, they're expert. They're not going to overlook a scan, or they're not going to miss something out, and yet that's not actually true in your experience. Certainly, it's not true in mine. That's a big responsibility to take, but it feels really important to emphasize that this is so important, that the individual takes responsibility for their health, doesn't expect anyone else to take care for it.
And everyone is unique. So as you're saying that, my mind, you know, was thinking of, you know, male, female, older or younger, and thinking, okay, well, I have a doctor. My doctor is going to make all decisions, and that's that. And then I stop, you know, because I know, you know, from the very beginning, it's important, again, to be proactive and engage in actions. And, you know, challenges can become opportunities, and adversity into actions, you know, being proactive. And that's when, you know, people can really strive. And if the patient, the person, you know, can't do it, they're not interested, they can. It's incredible how caregivers play that role. And a doctor years ago told me that, and he was a coach, and he said that, well, I'm working with 50% overall of cancer patients and, 50% of caregivers, trying to figure out the best course of action, not necessarily defining, treatments and those details. And yet, a lot of important information that was, with the mindset beneficial to the patient. Yeah, it's a journey. It's definitely a journey, and
yeah, I hear you when you pointed to that, when we were speaking about the changes that we might make and how much motivation we might have and so on. Yeah, I'm looking at myself now 8 years after diagnosis, and I'm still refining and adjusting and remembering, why did I forget? Why did I stop doing that? Or whatever it might be. So the ongoing nature of the journey, as you aptly put it. I also wanted just to emphasize what you were saying about the importance of self-advocacy and point to the evidence behind that, because one of my favorite books that I'll recommend to people is Radical Remissions by Dr. Kelly Turner. And I think of the 9 factors that outlier results, or spontaneous remissions or miracle healings, however we language that, create, they point to intuition. Like all of them say that intuition in their treatment decision, intuition in their treatment options being absolutely fundamental and so important. And that just really emphasizes there might be a point when we're faced, whether it be an alternative provider or a complementary provider or a conventional provider, where they're giving us advice that they feel is really the right way to go, but we might have a sense that that's not right, that there's actually a different path that's right for our unique case, right for our body. So I think that's for me how that self-advocacy might be guided, or what it might look like. So I'm interested, how has your intuition been helpful? How have you followed it or not followed it as the years have unfolded in your journey?
As you bring up intuition, I feel some calm within. And certainly a part of my life, as a child, and that has continued to unfold in my adulthood. And I think it's key in living life more fully, to be aware, to be awake. And, there's intuition, the way I perceive it, and instincts. Instincts are, in the body in a certain way, and that relationship, that, communication, awareness. And then with intuition, sometimes, for me, I perceive information, from the outside, I can put it that way, externally. Guidance, spiritual guidance. And, I feel spirit within as well. I'm also aware of my soul and my soul's evolution and those forms of guidance. So with intuition, I go to my mindset, sometimes I make mistakes. I feel that I should go this way or another. And that's for me to learn more. And that's okay. Of course, it depends on the decision-making process.
Right. And
so
I was going to say, to expand that decision-making process from just the rational thought. I think we live in a culture that's dominated by that, particularly within medicine. That you use reason and rational thought, and yet if we actually look at the evidence and really truly use reason and rational thought to speak to instinct, as you were saying, like that would be the brain in our gut, right? The neurology in our gut, we could say, and the intuition is the neurology in our heart. So it seems kind of funny, apt to brain tumor survivors that to be in the awareness that our brain, our neurology, our intelligence is dispersed through the body. I think that's not something that most, well, I don't know, but I think it's something that would be helpful for more patients to be aware of when they're in conversations with providers. Like, what's your body telling you? What's your gut telling you? What's your heart telling you? As well as the reason and rational thought as well. It feels like a really big piece of how to navigate that journey.
And it's a journey. So I can explain it in corporation and explaining it with doctor-patient communication. And the cancer patient, the person with cancer, impacted by cancer, I think it's important for them to take that relationship from the doctor. And indeed, as you were just describing, as we're talking about, to really, and it can be, talking with the doctor in person together, or it can be digesting, and then the body, that relationship with the body continues, and to really listen and to track that communication together. And absolutely it'll come, and sometimes it'll certainly just come like that, that awareness, no, it's not a good idea, or okay, I'm gonna embrace it. And once whatever it is, whether it's another treatment, first treatment, or various treatments, and or as well as within integrative cancer care for the whole person, or whatever person defines it, to know that it is a process. It is a process. It takes time sometimes.
Right, and to emphasize that integrative aspect, I know that's, I was reading a blog on your website, JeannineWalston.com, where you distinguish between alternative, complementary, integrative, and so on. And it seems that that's a very important clarity to have as to what integrative is and how it is about engaging the whole person. You listed some of those areas of focus earlier on in our conversation. And I wonder if you can speak to what's been most significant in your whole person treatment for yourself. Like, if someone's watching this and they've had a diagnosis, or they're just looking to really hear what has been the most powerful levers, as it were, in supporting your growth and well-being, what have you found to be like the key areas in your own experience?
In my own experience over the last 20 years, I've done hundreds of integrative approaches, therapy approaches, and it changes over time. So, at this point, I'm focused on diet and exercise and stress reduction and meditation and, an osteopath and a neurological chiropractor and so many other strategies, and a GI doctor. It really depends on the timing.
Right.
It is essential, and really to assess and reassess. And I've been to 3 clinics in Europe, 2 in Germany and 1 in Switzerland. And that was years ago. I certainly learned a lot in the process.
Were they integrative clinics or specialists in brain tumors? Or
it wasn't specific to brain tumors. It was for cancer and using different strategies. I was at that point, after I was informed of the recurrence, I was living my life. I didn't want to have my second brain surgery at that point. And certainly at a few years into that, that chapter, I started looking in other directions and felt that I would find more innovative treatments in Europe. In hindsight, the case is yes, to a certain degree, and certainly there are providers in this country that are thinking outside of the box. So it varies. It totally varies.
And the healing piece, I know that that's been important for me, and healing for me is about wholeness, and I think that's what we were speaking about, the whole person, looking at the whole emotional body, the mental body, the physical body, of course, and how the physical body is interacting with the environment. And there's a lot of things you can buy in department stores that you really don't want to be putting on your clothes or your surfaces or whatever else it might be. But it means something more as well for me, which is around, I'm not even sure if I always like the word healing, because it kind of implies broken or something that needs fixing. But I'm particularly interested in an aspect of healing, or what I would call integrative integration work, or metabolizing, which is around emotions. And we know from Candace Pert's work with the molecules of emotion, and we know from psychoneuroimmunology that these our feelings, our emotions are far from insignificant when it comes to our body's experience of ease or dis-ease. And I wonder if you can speak to that. Has emotional healing or emotional integration or metabolizing, to what extent has that been part of your journey and inquiry?
That's a great topic. Certainly, in general, it took me many years to understand, of course, the mind-body connection. That was earlier in my journey. And then to understand emotions, feelings, thoughts, beliefs, actions, ego. There's so many, constructs in, getting to know the emotions and where that comes from. Various levels can come from the past and that repetition that occurs. And to really be in the moment and to recognize, okay, just got it. I did this. Mm-hmm. And then to incorporate new strategies for improvements in the moment as well as in the future. It's really important to identify the cause. I think of functional medicine. I think of individuals, really trying to get to know them into a more detailed individuality. It's not the surface. And really looking into the body, the internal terrain, the milieu, in that process with the mind-body connection. And I eat something that isn't right for me, well, there's that immediate progress in my cognitive functions that become sluggish or pissed off or whatever it is. And when I'm hungry, I'm just not myself. So it's there are so many ways in that dance, and to be very aware emotionally, and to define it, and then identify, well, what is that about? Why did I just go there? And what is the cause? Am I doing this frequently or sometimes? And who am I with? Am I with by myself, or am I with another person or a group of people? And to really know where they are. And and there can be that repetition where perhaps they're at a similar level with a certain pattern, and then to really go to a new place and to play around to find a external, feeling and, a new way to experience in life that can help to, transform. And then to, again, recognize, okay, is this continuing? Is this continuing? And how can I change it? So, I continue in that process. Absolutely. And again, I was, diagnosed with a brain tumor. That was a long time ago. Of course, I'm 45. So, I aspire to live a long life. For the last 20 years, I've definitely learned a lot, and that continues.
Mm-hmm. I like what you're pointing to there about what for me has been after I was diagnosed, a sort of ruthlessness around who I'm spending my time with, and indeed what I'm watching and what I'm reading. I really started to get really clear on what's important, and I want to be with people that I feel good in relationship with, that I enjoy being with, that are supportive of my health and well-being. It seems like an obvious thing, but I think a lot of people may find themselves in relationships or in friendships that aren't actually supportive of their highest good or their health or well-being. A lot of the media that's out there on Netflix, and there are certain series and films and so on, they may not actually be really programming us in the most inspired and joyful, healthy state of mind and body. So again, it's another strand of the integrative approach. It seems like really looking at your environment, and often people think, well, okay, chemicals that I'm using in the home, and yes, that's part of it, but also your circle of friends, your loved ones, people that you're connecting with on a regular basis. Are they contributing, or do they need to be jettisoned, let go of? That's I think a really useful gift that I've taken from the whole process. Now I won't waste time with literature, books, films, people that aren't good for me, essentially. So that's been a positive. I think there's a Facebook slide doing the rounds, isn't there, that says before you diagnose yourself with depression, just check you're not hanging around with a bunch of, I think it says on the slide, arseholes or something like this. So having a clarity, and again, being empowered to be clear on that. And I hear you speaking as well about going back to the emotional aspect, those patterns, those patterns of thought or emotions that we're experiencing. So there's that opportunity to continue that journey of expansion and healing and well-being as well.
Absolutely. And as you noted, as we're talking about, the mind-body connection, that being a piece of it. And again, it's the internal, environment, the milieu, that really needs to transform. I thought of a woman today before our conversation, and I met her. I was doing a raw foods retreat, and she told me her story. She worked there, and she told me her story where she had metastatic breast cancer, and she wasn't, responding to raw foods, diet, different strategies, and she continued staying there further, and she realized through a conversation with someone, she was in the pool, and she, as I recall, her daughter, someone in the family died, and it just, however, it was possible for this to suddenly, be articulated, with those intense emotions. She couldn't stop crying. She could not stop crying for days, and it continued. And that's when she started to heal. Profoundly, not just in her emotions, her mindset, her psyche, but literally, her some of her whatever she was dealing with, PET scans, it was increasing, and in parts it just wasn't even there anymore. So there are a number of pieces in, again, these puzzles that are acquired. It's beneficial when it's identified and released. It's that moving, that's movement, really moving through that process is really important in order to be on the other side with improvements large and small. And it can be huge. It can be huge.
Yeah, that's a huge piece there. And it feels helpful to emphasize that. So there's a bit of a paradox, because on the one hand, we want to cultivate joy, we want to cultivate happiness, we want to cultivate peace of mind. All these things are good for the nervous system, for the body, mind. And we also need to be open to and willing to feel whatever needs to be felt, whether it's a grief that's been locked away or stored in the body, or a sadness, or whatever it might be. So there's that willingness to I like this phrase or word, metabolize, because it really points to that woman, as I hear that story, there was a grief that was pushed away, that was unprocessed, that was stored in her body, and there was there was a goodness to extract from that, but it needs to be felt. It needs to be, I think there's a nice metaphor of the manure, or there's a lot of crap there, excuse my language, but there's nutrients in there, there's goodness that things can grow from. So that's certainly been true in my journey as well, the necessity to go into the darkness, to go into our shadows, to go into our wounds, to go into our unprocessed emotional charges, and to feel it. And the power of that release. I actually had a similar moment on my journey that felt to be significant, and I thought the next scan would show that the tumor had disappeared completely. Such was the momentous nature of the emotional release. As I have come to see it now, I look back and think, well, that was the psycho-spiritual breakthrough. And I think then that felt, to have surgery after that felt made more sense, that on that psycho-spiritual emotional issue having been resolved, now the surgery could take care of the physical residue, as it were. So it's, as I'm speaking to all this and hearing your journey and the complexity and learning that such a journey invites of people, that offers people, you've emphasized, and I always emphasize, how unique an individual's experience with cancer is. And you also spoke, and I want to just tie this in, you spoke of the soul's journey. So that deeper reason for you being, that deeper pattern of this life, or functional purpose of this life. I wonder if you can touch on that, like how has dialing into your deeper purpose, your reason for being, how has that been significant in your journey of healing and health?
That's so important for everyone. And in my journey, as I was moving forward after my surgery and going back to work, and ultimately exploring in a variety of ways, and I can explain it in so many different ways. I was going to support groups. I was immediately helping people as I was striving to experience support on my own. And when I became friendly with someone that went to the support group, and over time, she was getting sicker and sicker. And as I bared witness to, I believe it was only one time, as she was closer to her passing, it broke my heart. I'd never seen it before. And then going to her funeral, it completely, I was feeling my pain profoundly. And I was then feeling my body and what instincts, what I was doing. And I was, I wanted to lobby Congress. I was having other people send letters, to Congress, that brain cancer needs more funding, period. And how it was so important for the National Cancer Institute to increase, what they provide to, my new community. It, again, so needed. And from there, as I was continuing working in the U.S. Congress, I had 1 month recovering from surgery, and when I returned and continued there for less than 2 years, as I was exploring, it was clear to me that I was already doing volunteer work, and then it was clear to me that I wanted to join the cancer community, full time. And it's been an incredible evolution. I was working for 2 cancer nonprofits, one, extremely well known in the country, and it was perfect timing. I was a consultant with the Food and Drug Administration, the National Cancer Institute, and I was loving, all of those experiences. And at the same time, that was when I was really seeing it and defining it. I couldn't just focus on the disease. I had to give attention to the whole person. And I didn't understand it, what that was. And I immediately got a job position full-time at the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Medicine's Clearinghouse. I'm part of the National Institutes of Health. So it from there, it just continued. That has been my journey. And then I started my own business in 2004. And it's essential for each person to find their calling in life. Now, I have to emphasize that some people are already doing their work about what is most meaningful to them. And suddenly they're dealing with cancer, and it's ongoing and it's challenging, and they don't have the time to do their work that they love. And, maybe they just, they feel tired, they're just not, thinking as well. They're not motivated, and they can't, in various ways. So it depends on the person. Some people want to, realize I'm not giving attention to my family. I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to do that. Well, bravo, good for them, because they are seeing and choosing what they desire, period. Right. So it really depends on the person. And in my journey, as I described, it's been through wonderful waves, and continuing, to strive now and into the future.
I appreciate how you emphasize that the personal nature of that purpose. Purpose is one of those words that we tend to think of some sort of big cause or heroic or something like this. And that's clearly been a part of how your purpose has evolved into running your own business, into serving others, to create healing and health and well-being that sort of fits with that model. And I appreciate you speaking to, for someone, it might be to focus more on their relationships, to focus more on being the best father that they can be or the best mother that they can be. So what that purpose or calling looks like will vary. And I like how you emphasize it's that coming into contact with what we truly desire, with what that individual really, really, truly desires, not what society wants us to do, not what we have wanted to do since mum and dad's influence or whatever, but what we actually truly desire to experience, create, contribute in this life.
And contributing, with service can be defined in so many ways. What is service? Is it service for me to take care of myself? Because I've never done that before. I'm not saying that for myself. And in some ways, yes. I don't have the awareness. I'm getting to know myself and what I need to do. And certainly service in other ways, which is so important. And there's the giving and receiving, and defining that in so many different ways, and to really, feel thankful. Definitely feeling thankful.
I know your smile is probably in recognition of how important gratitude is in my journey in life as well. And also I hear the appreciate pointing to the importance of receiving as well. I think very often people, particularly mothers and fathers perhaps, are so programmed or so conditioned or practiced, habituated being wonderful givers and looking after others, taking care of others, that it takes a little bit of work to actually adjust their focus to recognizing that now I need to take care of myself first and foremost. That's most important. My health and well-being is most important. I've got to prioritize that. And it's interesting to notice that's often a bit of a process in itself for people to take that shift and into that receiving frame of mind as well. For me, with the brain tumor thing, one of the aspects of that, looking at it from a sort of esoteric metaphysical perspective, was connection with source, or connection with life, or connection with consciousness, and receiving that love of life has been very important. And I appreciate you speaking to being thankful, because for me that's a really effective, simple way of receiving, actually appreciating the goodness, appreciating even our breath, appreciating our good qualities, appreciating our journey, appreciating all the beauty and goodness that's in our life and our experience, which of course is great for the immune system. It's great for our overall body-mind system. I'm just looking at the time and mindful of yours and ensuring we sort of finish within some reasonable time frame as well. And it feels that perhaps on that receiving and gratitude, we might have touched on a nice completion point. And I want to ensure that people are aware of JeannineWalston.com, and they'll be able to read all the website and so on details in the notes, so that if they feel called to connect with you, there's lots of useful blog articles, really useful information on that website. And of course, if people want to engage with a coach or a speaker or a consultant, that's opportunities that are available as well. So I want to say,
I also have, I have two websites. The other one is healingfocus.org.
Beautiful. Thank you. So healingfocus.org, as well as JeannineWalston.com. And both of those will all feature in the program notes as well. So Jeannine, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate your journey, and I hope that it will bring inspiration and powerful information to our viewers and listeners today. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Will. It's quite an honor. I appreciate you and your own journey and what you're doing right now. So expansive. And I really look forward to seeing you evolve into the future.
Likewise. Thank you, Jeannine. And thank you for listening and watching to our viewers and listeners. Please visit loveandtruthparty.org to join our community, download or order love letters, register for our newsletter, connect on social media, and consider a financial gift at loveandtruthparty.org. Thank you to all our supporters and contributors. Together we are creating kind, conscious, courageous human community.